Hi, I'm Wes Alyn with DM Tales, and I've got a question for you. Have you ever had a game scheduled, but most of the players have something come up and suddenly they can't play? Or maybe you have a night free and you're a bit bored, so you pop on Discord to see if anyone wants to roll some dice off the cuff. In those situations, what games do you have in your toolbox that you can just sit people down and run? And what are your criteria for choosing those games like that? That's what I'm exploring next on DM Tales. Let's roll it. When it comes to determining what makes a good system for spontaneous play for any GM, comfort is the most important consideration. A game could have all the criteria I think supports spontaneous play, but if I'm not comfortable running that game, I'm not going to try to run it off the cuff like that. Comfort is also personal. It's not up to me to tell someone else what is or isn't a good game for spontaneous play. The best thing I can do is describe what my criteria are for such games, and that is where I now turn. As I've thought about how I've chosen games to run with no or very little prep, I've found 4 common criteria. It's ideal if a game embodies all 4 of the things I'm looking for, but if a game's got even 2 out of the 4, it can make my cut. So let's take a quick look at what these are. If a system allows players to sit down at the table and create characters in a few minutes, that is a huge win. It makes characters unique to the players, and they get to figure out their character's personality and motivations as play progresses. Now, I can use pre-gens, and that's what I do for most of my convention games, but when I want to run a spontaneous game, I like to make character creation part of the process. Now look, there are folks who feel simple character design doesn't give them enough to work with to roleplay well. And while that's not my experience, I can see why some players desire a bit more depth. So I gotta ask a question then. Is it possible to make more complex characters at the table without using up all the time people have to play? In the information age, the answer is yes. There's a number of games that have guided tools which players can use to create more complex characters and output a character sheet in a few minutes. Cypher's Character Builder is a great example of this, and it allows me to use that system for a spontaneous game, even though character creation with the books requires a lot of time-consuming page flipping as you go through your sentence. So if you fear your favorite game's character creation process makes it too long to create characters for spontaneous play, there may be some tools for it which cross that particular divide. I know there are people out there who have an encyclopedic understanding of every combat option for some of the most crunchy games that have ever been designed. And they can bring that crunch to the table on a whim without even pausing to think. And I tip my cap to those folks, if I had one on, because it's a skill and it is amazing. It's also not where I'm at. For me, especially when I'm bored and I just want to sit down and play with whoever's handy, the more simple the mechanics, the better. I don't want to have to calculate areas of effect, measuring exact distances from movement, or figuring out which formula I need to use to see how many walls the bad guy gets punched through. Simple and fast, that is my happy place. And it doesn't matter if it's a D20 with a static target number for the scene or the entire game, a roll under skill mechanic, or an attack against one of the adversary's traits. As long as the mechanics don't insist they have to cover every possible situation, and I can teach them fast, I'm golden. Now, does that leave a lot of potential situational holes in play which might have to be adjudicated? Yeah. And for me, that is part of what makes GMing fun. Now, that might drive you nuts as either a GM or a player, and I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong to feel that way, because our personal preferences, again, are a huge part of this hobby. All I can do is communicate what I enjoy. I can't declare what I enjoy is real role-playing with the absolute brackets. What I can do is invite you to share what you think are great mechanics for a spontaneous game. And if it's different than what I enjoy, maybe I can appreciate a different perspective a little bit better. Now, it might seem odd to put this as one of my criteria because it's spontaneous play and it kind of is what you're automatically doing, but this is important to me. Trailblazing is the antithesis of railroading. Now, a spontaneous game can have a general path, a big bad to encounter, or scenes jotted down in just a few moments. But trailblazing the path through that plot can be a ton of fun. And to help with that endeavor, I tend to look for games where No matter what the players do, it's easy to let the world react. In particular, I look for games where checks cover a wide range of options and adversary stat blocks are both simple and easy to improvise. One of the cool things I've been able to do in a spontaneous game is to make up creatures on the spot by jotting down a number or two and then developing it on the fly during the encounter. And if I want to flesh out the adversary later to reuse it again, I can take a few of the things I jotted down and expand on them. Now look, here's the truth. It's possible to trailblaze in just about any game. It all comes down again to GM's comfort. It's even easy to improvise a monster or an adversary in just about any game. Set its health, how hard it is to hit, and how easy it can hit the PCs, and then improvise the rest based on the description. If it's wooden, it makes sense to have it vulnerable to fire. If it's metal, it could be immune to lightning or resistant to a lot of physical damage. If it needs to make a save against something, give it a number it needs to beat and let the players know what it is. I find some games make it easier to pull off this trick than others, but it's possible with just about anything, as long as the GM is comfortable. You hear in the refrain here. Okay, here's the controversial one. For me, a spontaneous game works best without minis and maps. Now, there are folks for whom theater of the mind play does not work. Like literally, there is a neurological block there. It does not work for them. So of course, minis and maps can be used, but I like to run fast and loose when I get a chance for spontaneous play. Setting up maps just takes time I don't want to spend. If I'm playing with folks who enjoy seeing the action in their heads instead of on a map, that's what I do. See, I'm not an artist. I don't have a ton of minis lying around, and I tend to knock stuff like that all over the place because I'm a bit of a spaz. Just ask Ron from Page what I did to one of his Stingbat minis. But when I'm running Theater of the Mind, I'm only limited to my imagination. And this is important. If the players riff on my descriptions in unexpected ways, then their ideas become part of the scene. I don't have to preset it up. In other words, for me, Theater of the Mind play helps create the trailblazing I'm looking for in a spontaneous session. I have brought up the idea of GM comfort a lot in this video because without comfort, spontaneous play can be terrifying instead of fun, and this is a game, it should be fun. And over my relatively short time GMing, I've found a few games I really enjoy running with little or no plan. Let's take a look at what they are. This little-known superhero game by John Fredericks of Sharp Mountain Games is my gold standard for spontaneous play. To create a character, you assign 4 modifiers to your stats. In newer versions, you actually assign the target numbers you need to hit when rolling each stat, which is cool. Then you write down 4 powers, skills, or pieces of gear the hero has, and then assign 4 different dice to each of those, a d6, a d8, a d10, and a d12. If you have equipment that can be taken away from a character, such as a weapon or an armor, they get an extra d6 ability. All that's left then is to give the hero a name and set their health based on how their powers work. Rolls are easy. The player says what they're trying to do with what power, skill, or gear is in play. The GM then calls for a d20 roll. If the table is playing with modifiers, the applicable attribute modifier is added to the roll. And if the table is playing with where the attributes are actually the target number, the player just says if they meet or beat their target. If the move is successful, then the player rolls the effect die, assigned to whatever power, skill, or gear was being used. Players can knock out the baddies by using these rolls, of course, but if a hero encounters an obstacle, any obstacle, a GM assigns hindrance points to it. And to circumvent the obstacle or avoid bad outcomes, the heroes need to deal with those hindrance points before continuing on. A crowd in a path of a villain's attack, for example, could set a number of hindrance points which have to be cleared in a set amount of rounds before horrible things happen. That's pretty much the whole game. Fly, be free, go nuts. It's so much fun. Into the Odds character creation process is amazing. Players roll 3d6 3 times to determine their stats and then another d6 to set their hit protection. Then players look at the chart, they cross-reference their highest attribute score and their hit protection, and the cell where the values meet is where they find their starting gear. Give the character a name, and you are done. Into the Odd is all about exploring, so a GM can jot down a map as players move forward, describing each room as it's encountered. The only real requirement is that dells be odd. Stat blocks for the game are simple. Creatures might have an attribute score for saves, and then they have health and an attack. They'll also have a motivation and a short description. One hiccup for spontaneous play, though, are the random events for the game, which are supposed to be triggered every time the party enters a new space. Now, these are typically D6 tables, so a GM can either use something they've already prepared, just pull something out of storage, or take the moments when the players are making characters to jot down some thoughts. For me, I enjoy tables with events that make spaces feel creepy, mixed with some wandering encounters. Mechanics, they're simple. When a save is called for, the player rolls a d20 and must roll equal to or under their attribute to succeed. Attacks always hit, but damage is mitigated, first by whatever armor a character has, and then by their hit protection. Damage which exceeds those values is taken from the character's strength score, and when strength hits 0, the character is no more. The cool thing is, hit protection resets in every room. I love running this game. As I said earlier, Cypher System, which is soon to just be Cypher, has a character building process which, while not difficult, entails a lot of time-sucking page flipping to complete. But Monte Cook Games' excellent character builder tool that handles all the heavy lifting and page flipping for the players, making the process a lot faster. Without that tool, I may not have included it in this list of games, even though the mechanics are dead simple for a GM to improvise. Because here's the thing, Cypher System was made for trailblazing spontaneity. Everything in the game has a level from 0 to 10. Players will use their skills, their equipment, their abilities, and their attribute pools to whittle down that level as low as possible, after which they multiply the final number by 3 to get their target on a d20. Now, I have been told by people who have not played Cypher that this process sounds complicated. All I can say is that it is lightning fast at the table, and my players have loved it. The party hits a locked door, it's a level 8 to unlock it. They need to convince a skeptical NPC to give them information? Well, that's a level 3 task. Are the characters hit with poison or disease of some kind? That's a level 4 or 5 to resist. And making big bad adversaries is so much fun to do on the fly with Cypher. I do not need to go look up stat blocks. Rather, I can describe something on the fly that matches the situation, and then based on that description and how tough I want it to be, I assign it a level. That level becomes a target number both to hit and to dodge, because players roll all the dice in Cypher. The creature's target number also becomes its base health, and its level is typically the base amount of damage it inflicts. That's going to be adjusted a little bit in the upcoming version. We'll get to that when it comes out. If I want to make it good at something, I can raise its level for certain interactions, making it harder to avoid. If I want to give it a vulnerability, I can lower its level in certain situations to make it easier to deal with. Everything else, it's just description. With Cypher, I set up a situation and create adversaries based on a single number. I have never encountered a game which takes as much of the cognitive load off my plate as Cypher. Now, I will say that I've cheated a bit with Cypher up to this point, as I pre-populated tables from which I can draw ideas for a session, and then I have the players roll in order to determine what happens, and that's what I call my chaos adventures. Expect a video on that very, very soon. But there's no reason at all why I couldn't just sit down, put the players in a situation and say, let's go. In fact, I'm looking forward to trying. If you're a GM who has gotten this far into the video, you might be thinking, I do spontaneous stuff all the time in my sessions. And you know what? You're right. Anytime the players force the world to react to their actions in an unexpected way, we hit moments of spontaneous play. And those are often the moments that people remember the most about the campaign. That's when it's clear that everyone at the table is building the world together, which is what makes those moments stick in our minds. And if that's you, and you're at a point where you're really comfortable with one of the games you run, may I invite you to invite some folks to play for a spontaneous session with zero plan. You may not like it, and your players may feel a bit uncomfortable with that much of the work being shifted onto their own imaginations, but it's worth trying. And if you run a spontaneous session which is not attached to your normal campaign, you've given yourself a chance to expand some of your normal GM skills with very low stakes. There's no long-term commitment to it. If you've watched this video and thought to yourself, no way, no, I'm not doing that, that's cool too. because running with a plan takes every bit as much skill as jumping off the proverbial cliff and guiding a story on the way down. And if that's not a prospect which excites you, keep GMing in ways which do excite you. This is a game. It's supposed to be fun for everyone at the table. Coming up, I have finished reading Coriolis the Great Dark, and it is a fantastic game. I have already done a live stream showing how the character creation process goes. It's really, really cool. Played this at GameholeCon, was really smitten with it. I'm looking forward to running it myself pretty soon. Also, I have some other Coriolis the Great Dark supplements that I want to get on the channel very, very soon. Thank you to Free League for sending out them to me. I have also almost finished reading Redacted by Al Spader. It is a really cool system and a fun setup, so I'm looking forward to getting that on the channel soon after Coriolis the Great Dark. I mentioned my chaos sessions in this video, and I've got a video explaining how I go about making those. Expect that coming up pretty soon, in addition to all my normal random thoughts. I've got the two creators of the community-run Infinite Tabletop coming on the channel. That's an online convention that runs at the end of June. So they're coming on for an interview tonight as I record this. So this video will go up after that interview, but go find it because it's really, really a good thing. And if you have time to play, this is a great opportunity to do it and try some really cool games. After that, I've got the author of a new system called Trinamic, who I met out at GameholeCon. He's going to be coming on to talk about that the following Monday. So look for that on the channel very soon. And we've got book club coming up as well, where we are talking about Pirate Borg. Looking forward to that one. Got a whole lot going on. So much fun things to do. And don't forget ECCLESICON is coming up May 1st and 2nd in Palmyra, New Jersey, raising money for the roof replacement loan on my church and for booksmiles.org. And it is going to be a blast. There are still a ton of spots left at really cool tables. So if you're interested in just a small little boutique convention and you are somewhere near the Philadelphia area, this is a great one to come to. Until we see each other again, folks, happy playing, everyone.